Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Wonder Series. It is Wednesday, so of course it is Wonder Series Wednesday. What does that mean? The Wonder Series is your opportunity to stop and think outside the box, to look at life from another perspective. What would you do? Who would you be? What would you create if you opened your mind to other ideas and thought processes? Opened yourself up to the possibilities and the opportunities that are out there waiting for you. I'm Denise Stegall. I'm the CEO and curator here at livinghealthylist.com and your host of the Wonder Series. So this month in January 2022, we have been talking about the resilient mindset. Our overall theme for the year is resiliency, and why that is so important and how we can help you, our viewers and our listeners, to really get that resilient mindset, to find those tips and those strategies to help you move forward and to be strong. So today, my special guest is Lisa Erickson. Lisa is an energy worker and intuitive, specializing in women's energetics, trauma healing, and goal manifestation. She's the author of Chakra Empowerment for Women and the Art and Science of Meditation. Lisa, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Thank you, Denise, for having me and for covering these such important topics.
Thank you. When it comes to health and wellness, like people automatically think, especially because I'm a health coach, my background is food and nutrition, people automatically think, oh yeah, I know, I have to change my diet. Oh yeah, I should eat better or exercise more. There's so much more to wellness than that. And so let's talk a little bit about resiliency and a little bit about introduce us to chakras and energy, because to be honest, I know about chakras, but I don't know enough to have a true conversation about it. So I'm looking to you to educate me as we educate our audience here.
Yeah. Well, chakra work and energy work, it's really part of a holistic approach to health, which I know you're very big on, right? And holistic is mind, body, and spirit. And so there's many traditions all around the world that have mapped out the idea of an energy body that is really like an intersection between our physical body and our psyche or our spirit. Different parts of your body that you can focus on that are linked to this energy anatomy, and they're linked to different emotions. They're also linked in energy medicine to different physical symptoms, and they're a complementary modality you can use with whatever else that you're doing. They're really looking at you as a whole person. And a lot of energy work has crept into our culture in ways people don't recognize, like yoga and yoga postures. They are not just based on physical anatomy. They're actually based on chakra mappings. Different postures are said to release a certain energy in a certain body part or help clear or cleanse. So when yoga postures were developed, they were developed around these energy center or chakra mappings, not just the physical body.
I see.
Yeah. And acupuncture too is based on energy mappings.
That actually, I did know that. I still don't completely understand it, because I did have some done a couple of years ago. I was struggling with some headaches and all that kind of silliness. Turns out it was allergies, which
there you go.
Good to know. But that was really intriguing to know, like with acupuncture, like some of the things that the misconceptions that I had before I had experienced it.
And it's based on an energy mapping of the meridians, different than the chakra system, but they intersect with each other. So really, chakra work is based on this idea that we do have this other anatomy that intersects with our physical body, but also intersects with our psyche. Each energy center or chakra is linked to physical body parts, but also to certain emotions, right? Like the heart, as you would expect, is linked a lot to our relational self. And the throat center is linked a lot to our expressive self, so each chakra is linked to different things. In terms of resilience, it's really about what we call the foundation chakras, the first and second, and maybe even the third, these lower chakras that are located low in the body that have to do with feeling safe in our body and feeling able to adjust and adapt to changing circumstances, because those two things, sort of a sense of foundation and a sense of adaptability, are really key to resilience. And they're really associated with the first two chakras.
I see. Yeah, I think when you say adaptability, I think that's one of the things that we don't really think of when we think of being resilient. We're going to stick to it no matter what. But there really is something to say about being adapting to whatever the environment is, the situation is.
Yeah. Yeah, I work a lot with trauma survivors, and you could say, like we were talking about before the show, the last 2 years maybe have been a little bit of a trauma for all of us, regardless of whether you have something in your specific individual story that you consider traumatic. And it is always about being able, this whole 2 years has been about, can you adjust to changing circumstances that are outside of your control? What often happens when we experience anxiety is we want to get it under control. So it is about gripping down, right? And then it becomes even harder to adjust to things that are outside of our control. And so that adaptability is key to being able to stay calm, because otherwise you're that blood pressure, those adrenaline, that's starting to go up with your stress level.
Yeah. So that makes me think of kind of not mindset, being mindful in being present in the time. If we're adapting, we are trying to be more present and really paying attention to what's happening. And I think that's always a struggle for people.
Yeah, exactly. What mindfulness is that ability to be present without a reaction. Because we just sort of react. No, I don't want that. Oh, that's different than what you told me it was going to be. The time changed, or this changed, or the rules changed. And I didn't want that. But so then there's this tension that immediately happens to try to stop it. Being mindful is just being like, oh, okay, it is what it is. I'm going to think about this for a minute. So that's what I mean by this combination of stability and adaptability, so you can just stay present. Fear and anxiety cause us usually to rise up in our energy body and our physical body. You sort of rise up, all this tension up here, the mind starts spinning, the shoulders and jaw tense up. From a chakra perspective, it's like you're off your base, and as we know from a balance perspective, you don't have any balance if you're off your base, right? Your base, your foundation has to be solid. Yeah. So we work a lot with the lower chakras for resilience.
Now, when you say, repeat to me, when you say lower chakras, 1, 2, and 3, when I think lower, I'm thinking lower body, but I think I'm backwards.
No, you are correct. Yes.
Okay.
So there's a lot of different chakra variations, mapping variations, but the 7 chakra system that most people will see if they Google chakras, the first chakra is the tailbone, the second in the pelvis, the third in the belly, the fourth in the heart, fifth is throat, sixth is forehead, and seventh is top of the head. So it's going up.
Okay.
So first and second are really the lower body and trying to bring that energy down your base. Yeah.
That is interesting. So a few years ago, more like 15 years ago, I had a Reiki section, so energy medicine. And it was something that I didn't really know a lot about. I had heard great things. And so I had been struggling with some emotional things. And I thought, why not give it a try?
Yeah.
Couldn't hurt, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm amazed by, and now this makes sense to me, because she started kind of at my feet and kind of came up. But what I noticed as she kind of came up and what possibly was, maybe the, 2 or 3, second or third chakra, I had a complete, what I called at the time, meltdown. I had this overflow of emotion, cried for what I thought was like an hour, but it was probably about 5 minutes. These incredible deep sobs. Now, I had experienced some serious trauma at that point. I had lost my dad. My husband and I were trying to get pregnant and it wasn't working. So all of those things kind of at the same time. And I have to say, I didn't really understand until after the fact how storing negative energy can affect our psyche and really our resilience.
Yeah.
Because after the fact, I felt relieved, but that's not the right word. I felt free.
Exactly. I was going to say clear, but I think free is even better. That's exactly right. We store these things in our physical body and our energy body. People will sometimes have meltdowns in massages too when they're having body work done, because it's like a certain knot is almost storing an emotional experience. But that's such a beautiful story because our second chakra, which is linked to our pelvic area, is the one connected to emotions. And so it's often where women in particular will store emotions that feel like too much, right? And then when they're cleared out, there is this beautiful freeing that happens. So the flow can move through your whole energetic system. And that's what I love about the chakras, is it really is showing you that holistic, those emotional experiences, link into your body. It's this whole self healing.
It really is amazing because it's so different from our Western medicine. And what I love about energy medicine and kind of the complementary and alternate medicines is they really do go hand in hand.
Yes.
But we don't understand a lot about energy medicine and some of the other modalities that are out there. And I think moving forward, we're learning more and more.
Yeah, and understanding how the two can work together to treat the whole person, right? Because that is really what, they're not in conflict necessarily. It's more about treating the whole person.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Hence the word holistic, right?
Yeah, and often getting to the roots. If someone has, for example, diseases that are exacerbated by stress, right? You can treat the disease that has resulted, but you need to get back to the roots of the stress or stress management and what's being held in the body, past trauma, and working to heal that so it doesn't recur. And we already know, for example, children who've experienced abuse or alcoholic parents are at greater risk of all kinds of physical diseases later on. Stress, especially in childhood and throughout our life, and trauma and abuse contributes to so many emotional patterns that can contribute to disease later on. So dealing with that whole self. Yeah.
And it can really be a really tough cycle, because
yes.
I think a lot of times people just think, oh, this is just my life. This is how I was raised or how I am. And that's it. I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, it seems to me like that's a story that we're telling ourselves. There's much more going on there.
Exactly. And in a way, that's a kind of hopelessness, like nothing can change for me, right? And, often when I'm working with a client who has that feeling, it's a lot about working with the heart at the start, and the third eye, which has to do with just deserving in the heart, feeling like deserving. I deserve to feel better, right? And then having some sense of vision. That's what this chakra is about, having some sense of vision that things could be better for me, right? And that's the starting point. To believe, yes, we can change. Sometimes it's slow, that's true, right? But we actually can change our patterns.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's that one step, one step at a time. I think what happens is so often people say, oh, I know I need to change, or I have this situation or issue, but it's too big.
Yeah.
And I think this is a great way for people to kind of slow down and to look and, on a regular basis, to do something beneficial to help their situation, the way they feel, the way they things manifest in them.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, so I whenever I think of energy medicine and I think of the people who I know who are connected, who are experts in the field, most of them are women. Are men and women, are they different when it comes to the chakras, to energy medicine?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the areas I'm very interested in, is because the energy body intersects with the physical body. On that level, there are differences, right? There are differences in the physical body, biological men and women, that really flow through the whole system, right? I mean, there's differences in the heart, in the way the heart functions, and heart medications that actually have to do with the difference in hormone levels. So it's not just about our reproductive systems. And it's the same with the chakra system. It is an entire system. So we were just talking about that sacral chakra in the pelvis for women that is linked to the reproductive organs and the hormonal balance. And that actually, it kind of ebbs and flows in a way that is not the case for men. Our energy ebbs and flows in a way with our cycle. And then during perimenopause, it's considered a big energetic shift that occurs, perimenopause and menopause, that can be very positive if someone embraces it that way. So there are shifts in our cycles and phases. What I will say is, in general, the feminine energy body tends to be more absorbent, meaning we tend to be more empathic. We pick up other people's emotions and we feel responsible for them. Now, part of that is conditioning, social conditioning, right? So there's this intersection of sort of some differences in our energy body and then social conditioning. So with women, the first thing we need to work with is boundaries and grounding, right? So they're not taking on others' emotions. Whereas for men, it often is fluidity, getting more emotional fluidity going and that energy. So that's stereotyping, but that is one difference you see a lot.
Yeah, I kind of wonder because I never really, I don't know a lot of men who go and say, you know, I'm going to go to have Reiki or work with my chakras. You know, women, like we kind of, you know, even if we don't get it, we kind of get it.
Yeah.
But I do see, you know, with the ebb and the flow and of a woman's life,
Yeah.
definitely very different from a man's. And I'm just thinking, you know, the times when I have, you know, have more energy and have than others. And I guess it does make sense that, you know, depending on the time of the, you know, time of your cycle when you're focusing on energy medicine and chakras, I would imagine things would be very different. Like you would experience very different emotions.
Exactly. I mean, the time like moving into menstruation is considered a very inward time. Our energy body is actually kind of sensitive, which we all sort of intuitively know, but it's actually considered a time when we're very insightful. Like it's a time where if you're contemplating an issue or a problem, you need to just sit with something. It is a good time for solitude if you can find that. And then the peak of ovulation, our energy is much more external. And that has a biological purpose to it, right? In terms of attracting mates and all that. But our energy body is considered to be very emanating at that time and very creative. So that's another thing. You can sort of feel this outward, inward cycle. And you can learn to work with that to some extent as you learn to work with your chakras. Yeah.
So how does that, so I understand that as a younger woman, but when you mentioned a minute ago, you know, perimenopause and menopause, things are very different. Your body is changed at that point or changing. So how does that work with the energy flow?
Yeah. Well, this time in your 40s, and I am postmenopausal now, I'm in my 50s. The time in your 40s, there is this instability in your physical body and your energy body. You know, your hormones are swinging around and you potentially have irregular cycles and various symptoms that can be challenging, and someone needs to receive medical help for that sometimes. But on the psychological energy perspective, it's considered this transition into greater personal power. And what I see is if a woman really goes into that transition, like this is a time in my life when I am leaning into anything I haven't faced. I am really going to work and heal at anything I haven't looked. I'm really going to look at anything that is blocking my expression of my personal power, my creative self. What do I really want? My dreams, that whole midlife assessment. And if you really lean into that, and often that does include energy work, it's often a time when women come to this kind of work for the first time. It's almost a spiritual longing at that time to go deeper. What I find is in their 50s, there's a new like blossoming, you know, and I see so many women doing amazing things, starting new businesses and writing books and moving into a whole new career, a whole new phase of their life at that time. It's true for men too, but because of our greater sort of sensitivity to energies, women go through a larger transit than men in general, or a more dramatic one often.
And some days that dramatization is really high in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because I turned 50 this year also.
Yeah.
And so I'm still kind of in that
in between.
Yeah. So I'm still in that in between. But it's interesting, you know, things that you just mentioned, you know, women kind of postmenopausal are really just kind of really coming into their own. I mean, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And, you know, starting new businesses. And it's so true. I know so many people who have written books, you know, in their 50s and their 60s, when they say, you know, when they were younger, it just wasn't something, it was something that they thought about, but it wasn't a passion. It wasn't something that was it wasn't something that they thought they really could do,
Yeah.
even though probably at the time they could have. And I wonder, of course, everyone's situation is different. If that was more circumstance, raising children, job, than actual belief in self.
Yeah, I mean, all those factors come together. But to be able to do that, you have to step in to your power in a way, and you have to counter those messages about aging that somehow this is the start of the decline, right? You have to let go of all of that and really just step into doing what you really feel passionate about. And that is part of that midlife transit. And it has an energetic component, and for some people, chakra work at that time can be especially helpful for that.
Mm-hmm. I just, the word like midlife, like, back in the day, the midlife crisis, I don't see women having that anymore. I mean, maybe men still do. I don't know a ton of men that age. But I think, it's I like the idea of this like midlife kind of new becoming.
That's what I love that. Yeah, that's exactly what it's meant to be. And sometimes there's struggle. Birth is rebirthing yourself is sometimes there's a struggle, right? And sometimes people face challenges. It is a time in their 40s where I have like women clients who maybe never faced past trauma. And now it's like, I'm realizing now I have to face it now or else, because it's left me with emotional patterns that if I don't change now, it's too late. Sometimes that's how it manifests. And so it can be a little bit of a struggle, but the other side is worth it.
Well, here's the question, talking about trauma. There may be no answer to this. Does everyone have trauma from some point in their life that they're dealing with or not dealing with? Sometimes, or is it just, people, sometimes it's very apparent what it is, but maybe for other people, it's not that apparent. And it's something that's kind of stuck in their system, I guess.
I do think that's the case. I think the definition of trauma that I tend to work with is it's an unintegrated experience. So it's some experience or situation that has impacted you and you haven't really ever integrated it. So there's unconscious patterns that ways that it's impacting you, right? Mm-hmm. So what you're trying to do is make it fully conscious so you can realize how it's impacted you, integrate it into your psyche, release any fears or other things that it got stored in you, right? So that you can truly integrate it and move on, process and move forward with the wisdom that it's given you. So if you work with that, then yes, of course, we all have experiences like that, And then if you believe in past lives, or there's this idea of secondary trauma, of ancestral trauma, you can be carrying all sorts of other types of trauma, trauma you witnessed. It wasn't even your experience, right? I mean, healthcare workers maybe right now are going through collective trauma. So there's all these different pieces to it. Yeah.
Two things that came to my mind. One, when you said, trauma that you may have witnessed, and I'm not one to watch a lot of scary, murder movies, because like that I have nightmares. Like I watched a movie like when I was a kid, and I still have nightmares. Yeah. So that's interesting, because I kind of think that's, for me, that is something that's really clear as a trauma. I mean, I never thought of it that way until right now. But, that movie, I mean, I'm 50 years old. I saw this thing 40 years ago. Yeah. And it still affects me negatively and scares me.
Yeah. So it hit something there. It hit some deep fear that stayed lodged there, and that may not be one that impacts you in your daily life. But many people do have experiences of one type or another that really do impact their daily life. There's a certain anxiety or response, triggers. That's what triggers are, right? We all have our triggers. And many of them are rooted in past events we haven't been able to process and integrate.
Mm-hmm. Something you mentioned earlier that just kind of comes to my mind too is, those limiting beliefs that we may have, and how a trauma, whatever that trauma may be, or, trauma could be a big thing. It could be a smaller thing, depending on who the person is, I would imagine. But something like that could absolutely cause you to have a limiting belief about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it usually does. I mean, sometimes shame, like if there's self-blame involved, or sometimes it's just a real lack of, I'm not safe anywhere, depending on, or sometimes there's survivor's guilt, depending on the type of trauma, an accident or war situations. So there's guilt that makes you feel undeserving or unworthy. So I think there's so many different types of situations, or I'm just unlovable. If it was an abusive situation, internalizing that sense that you're unlovable and that's why it happened. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it has to do with self-blame patterns, right? That really need to be cleared out, and feelings of unworthiness and shame. That's very common for across all kinds of trauma.
Sure.
And needing to work to heal and let that go and rewrite it. Part of what I like about the chakras is you can work in terms of what's blocked, and then you can work in terms of, well, let's affirm the counter. So you can be like, I let go of the idea I'm not deserving, right? And that's kind of a heart chakra thing. And then you can really focus on that heart chakra and affirm, mm-hmm. I am worthy of happiness. I am worthy of safety, things like this. And combining that with the chakra focus can be really powerful.
Oh, wow. And interesting.
And you can do that with any chakra. You can sort of be focusing on the chakra and just do statements to release what's blocking that and affirm. And it's a really simple, powerful way to do just daily energy work.
Oh, wow. Incredible. I want to get back to that in a second. First, but I do want to ask you a little bit about chakra empowerment for women, which is mm-hmm. one of your books. And I think that's really important, because since that's what we're talking about, chakra and empowerment and resilience. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Yeah. Well, and that is a lot of what I focus on the book. Like, how can you any woman in particular, just work with the chakras really for emotional healing and empowerment. It's very focused on that as opposed to the physical healing component. Although, because we're holistic beings, it often has that side benefit, right? So I'm very focused on the patterns that women in particular have the biggest issues with, which is often boundaries, taking on others' emotions, feelings of unworthiness, confidence, all of those kinds of social conditioning, and providing tools related to each chakra that are visual, affirmation-based, so that it's very simple for anyone to use. So they include pictures and how-to, and then the website has me guiding you through it if you want a voice to it. And they're meant to be things you can do sort of daily, like, okay, I really need to work on feeling safe in my body. So I'm going to do the root chakra for a month, right? Every day. Or you can use it in the moment. Whenever I start feeling anxious, I'm going to use this tool. I'm going to take 30 seconds and use this tool. So they're meant to be used both long-term or on the spot to get people really working with mindfulness, but in terms of the chakras and their energy.
That's really important, because so often when people, myself included, I start looking into something, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's so much information on the internet. We know that. So where do you start? Like, I always kind of wonder, okay, so I type in chakras or chakra energy, and there's so much, and it's hard to find out where to begin, where your book is that, begin here. You've made it simple and step by step for us to really to incorporate in our life every day.
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. And I was trying to make it really specific to women with the stories and stuff relevant to women. It's got women's stories interwoven. So maybe you recognize yourself or your situation in one of the women that you read about. And I think that helps bring it grounded, so it doesn't feel too sort of out in space. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm feeling this at work, so I'm going to work with this chakra for a while, right? Or I'm having these issues, this pattern in my relationship, so I'm going to work with this for a while, trying to keep it very grounded in that way. Yeah.
I love that. So can you tell us or share with us a simple chakra energy that we can use like right now, something that most women are kind of dealing with today?
Yeah. Well, let's do anxiety, because I think right now, especially, we're having another surge. So we're having, at least in California, we are, right? So we're having anxiety again. And are the kids going to school? Are they going to be home? All of this stuff. So I think, and anxiety on so many other levels, that is the best place to start. So you can just either stand with your feet solid on the ground or focus on your tailbone. And this in and of itself is an art. You might want to even reach a hand behind and touch your tailbone. This is the base of your spine, your skeletal system, your nervous system, this very base. What is it like to just take a few breaths and bring your energy all the way down? And if you're a visual person, just visualize a gentle red light there. And I wore red today on purpose. And then just say these affirmations. I am safe in this moment.
Safe in this moment.
And imagine that red light gets a little brighter. I stay present with whatever happens.
I stay present with whatever happens.
I am grounded and solid.
I am grounded and solid.
And then just move a hand up to your heart and just visualize a little light in your heart and just say, I am okay.
I am okay.
Great. And just that 30 seconds of pulling your energy down, activate that root, and then activate that heart. These two chakras really key for just helping you counter anxiety in the moment.
Wow. I think just 30 seconds was amazing, because as often as I do interviews, I'm always, because, it's just, it's the adrenaline, but just that 30 seconds and was truly kind of eye-opening.
That's it. It's really we have this other whole level of us, our energy body, and we just haven't learned how to use it, right?
Yeah. Wow. It's been wonderful talking with you, Lisa. It's amazing how quickly a half an hour goes. Can you tell us, how can people find you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, my website is Enlightened Energetics, and I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as Chakra Empowerment. And the book is available everywhere, Amazon and all that. But I do have a class coming up that starts next Tuesday tied to the book. So if anybody's interested, a 3-month chakra intensive starting next Tuesday, you'll find info on that at enlightenedenergetics.com or on either my Facebook or Instagram at Chakra Empowerment.
And Lisa, I will make sure that we have all of that information to put in our show notes, so people, if they're looking, if they're watching the replay, they can get it right there as well. Great. Thank you so much for this great information. You've opened my eyes to so much today. Like I said, I had a little bit of knowledge, but now I want to take that knowledge and take it to the next level. So thank you for your insight and your inspiration.
And thank you, Denise, for such positive energy and being open to helping others understand and explore these themes too.
Thank you. Well, our goal here is truly, our mission at Living Healthy List is to excite, to engage, to educate, and to empower women to truly create that life that they have been dreaming of, so they can be healthy, happy, and to flourish in this life that we are living. So thank you again. For those of you who are watching us on the replay, we are here every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you are a health and wellness professional, get in touch with us. Let's chat. We certainly are always open to new conversations, new interviews on the Wonder Series, where we do help people wonder about how life can be better. So thank you, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday. Till then, I leave you with this: healthy living, happy life.